I never thought much about God. Not seriously, at least. Sure, I believed in something, some higher power, some vague idea of fate or the universe. But religion? That was never for me. It felt like a burden, a set of outdated rules meant to control people, to take the fun out of life. My parents weren't religious, and neither were my friends, so it was never a topic that came up. If someone tried to talk to me about faith, I'd smile, nod, and change the subject. It wasn't that I was against it, I just didn't care. At 20 years old, I had my whole life ahead of me. My days were filled with college classes, endless scrolling on social media, hanging out with friends, and chasing whatever made me happy in the moment. My goals were simple: get through school, have fun, and figure out the rest later. The idea of death, of eternity, of what came after, those thoughts felt unnecessary. Life was too short to waste time worrying about something I couldn't see or prove. That didn't mean I never wondered, but whenever the thought crept in, I pushed it away. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, lying in bed at night or staring out the window on a long drive, I'd feel a strange emptiness, a hollow space deep inside me. It was like something was missing, but I didn't know what. Maybe it was just stress. Maybe I just needed to distract myself more. So, I'd turn up the music, check my phone, text a friend, anything to drown out that strange, nagging feeling. I wasn't unhappy. I had great friends, good grades, and enough freedom to do what I wanted. If someone had asked me if I felt fulfilled, I would have laughed. Who cares about fulfillment? I was young. I was living. That was all that mattered. But everything changed on that one ordinary afternoon. It was supposed to be a normal day, just like any other. The sun was shining, the streets were busy, and I was walking with my best friend, laughing about something completely unimportant. We were crossing the street, mid-conversation, when I heard it, a blaring horn. Screams. A violent impact. And then, everything went black. Laughter filled the air as my best friend, Emily, and I stepped onto the crosswalk. It was one of those easy afternoons, the kind where time doesn't matter, where you walk without thinking, lost in conversation. She had just said something ridiculous. I can't even remember what, but it made me laugh, tilting my head back in amusement. That's when I heard it. A deafening horn. The world slowed. Emily's eyes went wide. Her mouth opened, but I couldn't hear what she was saying, only the thunderous roar of the approaching truck. Screams. People shouting. Tires screeching. A sickening crunch of metal against pavement. Then, impact. I felt nothing at first, just a sudden force, like I had been yanked from the earth itself. My body lifted off the ground, weightless for a brief moment before something slammed into me. My vision blurred as I was flung backward, spinning, the sky and buildings twisting together in a chaotic blur. Then, nothing. No pain, no sound, no sensation at all. For a second, I thought I had blacked out, but then I saw her. Emily. She was kneeling in the street, screaming my name, her hands gripping something. My body. I was lying on the asphalt, completely still, arms twisted unnaturally, blood pooling beneath my head, eyes open but unfocused. A wave of confusion hit me. No, that's not me. I was standing, or at least, I thought I was. I tried to move forward, but my legs wouldn't respond. I tried to call out, but my voice was gone. Panic surged through me. What's happening? People rushed toward the scene, their faces twisted in horror. Someone pulled out a phone, probably calling for help. A man bent down, pressing his fingers to my neck, shaking his head. I felt nothing. No heartbeat. No breath. No weight of my own body. Then it hit me. I was dead. A wave of terror crashed over me. I tried to run back to my body, to force myself inside, but I had no control. I was watching, but I wasn't there. And then, something pulled me backward. An invisible force, cold and suffocating, yanked me away from the scene. The street, the people, Emily, they all blurred into the distance. I wasn't going up. I wasn't going toward a bright light. I was being dragged down, into something vast, something endless, something dark. I was falling, not through air, not through space, just falling. There was no wind, no sense of gravity, just an endless, suffocating pull dragging me downward. The world I knew had vanished. There were no lights, no sounds, just blackness. At first, I thought I was blind. But no, this wasn't just the absence of light. This darkness was alive. It wasn't empty. It was watching me, surrounding me, consuming me. Then came the voices. Whispers. Low at first, like wind through dead trees. Then louder, overlapping, speaking words I didn't understand. Some were soft, almost gentle, like a cruel lullaby. Others hissed and spat, their tones sharp and mocking. Then, they started saying my name. Annabelle! The sound slithered through the void, stretching my name in ways that sounded wrong, twisted, inhuman. The whispers laughed, a choked, distorted cackle that sent chills down my spine. I tried to move. I had no body, no hands to reach with, no legs to run. I was just there, floating in an ocean of darkness with no surface, no escape. A cold seeped into me, not like winter air against skin, but something deeper. It crawled inside my very being, wrapping around whatever was left of me. It wasn't just cold, it was emptiness, a void that wanted to swallow me whole. And then I felt it. Something was watching me, not from a distance. It was right there, inches away. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. A presence so overwhelming it made every part of me want to collapse inward. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything I could comprehend, and it wanted me. The shadows around me started to move. At first, just flickering at the edges of my awareness. Then, they took form, twisting, writhing things, shifting like living smoke. They had no faces, but I knew they were looking at me, getting closer. The whispers turned to screams. Not mine, others. Dozens, hundreds, overlapping cries of agony. Some sounded desperate, pleading. Others were beyond that, voices broken by suffering so complete. There was nothing left but raw, endless despair. I wasn't supposed to be here. This isn't right. This isn't happening. I tried to fight, to push against the darkness, but there was nothing to hold on to. I was helpless, completely at the mercy of whatever waited for me in the abyss. And then, the shadows lunged. A monstrous force rushed toward me, a presence so ancient, so wrong, that my very soul recoiled in terror. I couldn't see its shape, only that it was vast, powerful, and hungry. It had been waiting for me. It had always been waiting for me. I tried to scream, but I had no voice. I tried to run, but I had nowhere to go. The darkness closed in, then, stop. A single word. It shattered the abyss. The darkness recoiled, shrinking away like a wounded animal. The whispers fell silent. The monstrous presence that had nearly swallowed me shrank back, as if burned by something greater. And then, suddenly, light. The darkness shrank away as a blinding light pierced through the abyss. It wasn't just brightness, it was power. The shadows recoiled, the whispers vanished, and for the first time since I had left my body, I felt something other than fear. I was being pulled upward, though there was no wind, no force I could see. The crushing emptiness that had surrounded me moments ago dissolved, and suddenly, I was somewhere else. It was impossible to describe where I stood. There was no ground, no sky, just endless radiance. Not harsh like the sun, but pure, overwhelming, like standing inside something alive. The light didn't just illuminate around me. It pierced through me, as if I was suddenly transparent. Every part of me was exposed. And then, I saw him. A figure stood before me, more real than anything I had ever seen. Jesus. I didn't need an introduction. There were no doubts, no questions. I knew. His presence wasn't like anything I had imagined. There was no halo, no soft glow, no floating in the clouds. He was power itself, an indescribable force of authority and love that radiated from him like fire. And yet, despite all of that, he looked at me with sorrow. Not anger, not judgment. Sorrow. I couldn't speak. I couldn't even move. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. He saw everything. Every thought. Every choice. Every moment of my life laid bare before him. There were no excuses, no defenses I could hide behind. And then, it began. I didn't just see my past, I relived it. Every memory unfolded around me, like a panoramic movie playing at once. I saw myself as a child, curious but distracted, feeling something missing but never asking what it was. I saw the teenage years, the moments I had laughed when people talked about God, rolling my eyes whenever someone mentioned faith. I saw every time someone had tried to tell me the truth, the friend who invited me to church, the stranger who handed me a Bible, the late-night thoughts where I wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was something more. But I ignored them all. I saw every lie I had told, every selfish act, every time I chose my own way instead of listening to that quiet, nagging feeling inside me. But the worst part? I didn't just see what I did. I felt it. Every careless word, every cruel action. I felt what the other person had felt. The pain I had caused, the moments I had brushed off as unimportant, they were real, more real than I had ever imagined. And then, I saw the opportunities one had wasted, moments where I could have chosen differently, where I could have asked, listened, or turned away from the things pulling me further from the truth. But I hadn't. The truth hit me like a crushing weight. I had been given so many chances, and I had refused to see them. I looked at Jesus, desperate for an explanation, for something, but he already knew my thoughts before I could even form them. His voice wasn't like thunder, wasn't like fire. It was calm, but it carried the weight of eternity. You were never meant to be in the darkness. The words pierced through me, shattering every illusion I had clung to. But you chose it. My soul trembled. Not because you were evil, not because you hated me, but because you ignored the truth when it was given to you. Tears streamed down my face, though I wasn't even sure I had a face anymore. You lived as if none of this mattered, as if there was always time, as if you could push me aside until it was convenient. His voice wasn't angry. That was the worst part. If he had been furious, maybe I could have reasoned with it. Maybe I could have defended myself. But he wasn't condemning me. He was telling the truth. I had lived my life believing I could handle everything on my own, that I didn't need faith, that I had all the time in the world. And I had been wrong. Then, suddenly, the light around us changed. The warmth of his presence dimmed, and I saw something else, something terrible. The world, but not as I had known it. The sky was blackened, thick with something unnatural. The air itself looked poisoned, heavy and suffocating. Fires burned in the distance, and people ran through the streets in panic. I saw shadows moving among them, but they weren't hiding. They walked freely, their forms shifting, twisting. And the worst part? People didn't run from them. They followed, blindly, willingly. It was as if they couldn't see what was happening, as if they had been completely hypnotized. The terror in the air was palpable, but no one seemed to understand what was coming. And then, I heard his voice again. This is what is to come. I turned to him, my heart pounding. If I even still had one. They will not see until it is too late. The weight of his words sank into me like stone. I watched as people laughed, danced, lived their lives as if everything was fine, while the darkness around them grew thicker. I saw some try to run, but it was too late. And then, I saw the gates. A massive, brilliant gate of light, standing at the edge of the chaos. I knew what it was. Heaven. And people were running toward it. Desperate. Crying out. Begging to be let in. But just before they reached it, they were pulled back. Screaming. Pleading. I saw their faces. Some of them had called themselves believers. They had said Jesus' name, but they had never truly known him. They thought they were safe. But they weren't. Because they had waited too long. I turned to Jesus, my entire being shaking with terror. Why are you showing me this? His eyes met mine. Because time is running out. And with those words, the vision shifted again, and I was falling once more. The world stretched out before me, but it was nothing like the world I knew. The sky was black, not like night, but like something thick and poisoned, as if the heavens themselves had been suffocated. A deep, unnatural red glow pulsed from behind the clouds, flickering like embers in a dying fire. The air was heavy, pressing down like an unseen force, filling my chest with something that felt like pure dread. At first, I thought I was standing in a familiar place, somewhere on earth. But something was wrong. People moved through the streets, but their eyes were empty. They wandered aimlessly, their expressions blank. There was no urgency, no panic, just an eerie calm, as if they were sleepwalking toward destruction. And then I saw them. Shadows, dark figures, taller than humans, with twisting, unnatural forms, moving among the people. These weren't hallucinations. These weren't tricks of the light. These were demons. And no one reacted. The people did not run. They did not fight, did not scream. They welcomed them. Some smiled as the shadows reached for them. Others laughed, as if sharing a joke with an old friend. A woman held out her hand, letting a shadow wrap around her wrist like a lover's touch. A man knelt, head bowed, willingly offering himself. They didn't know. They didn't see what was happening. Or worse, they didn't care. I turned to Jesus, my body trembling. Why aren't they running? His voice was solemn. Because they cannot see. I watched, horrified, as the people walked deeper into the darkness, disappearing into the abyss without a second thought. They thought they were safe, but they weren't. Then, far in the distance, I saw a gate of light, brilliant, radiant, alive. It wasn't just a place. It was peace itself, a presence so powerful, so pure, that even from far away, I longed for it with everything in me. People were running toward it, crying out, begging. Some reached for the gates with desperate hands, screaming Jesus' name over and over. Lord, please, let me in. But the gates did not open. I watched in horror as they were pulled back at the last moment, ripped away by something unseen. Their screams pierced the air, their faces twisted in absolute despair. I knew you. I believed in you, one man sobbed. But Jesus' voice was firm, filled with a sadness deeper than anything I had ever known. They knew my name, but they never truly followed me. His words shattered me. These weren't people who had never heard the truth. These were people who thought they were saved. They thought they were going to heaven, but they had never truly given their hearts to him. They had lived their lives as if there was always time, always a tomorrow to get right with God. But now, there was no more time. Then, something else appeared before us. A massive book, floating in the midst of the light, its pages glowing with a golden fire. I knew what it was before Jesus even spoke. The Book of Life. The names inside were written in flames. But as the pages turned on their own, I saw something terrifying. Some names were missing. Some names disappeared. Names that had once been written vanished in an instant, as if they had never existed. These are those who once followed me, but turned away. Jesus said. I stared at the empty spaces, my soul shaking. I thought of all the people I had known. Friends, family, classmates, who had once talked about faith but drifted away. They had let the world pull them back. And now, their names were gone. I wanted to scream, to ask why, but deep down, I already knew the answer. It wasn't because God had abandoned them. It was because they had abandoned him. Then, the ground beneath us shook. An immense presence appeared beside Jesus, something so powerful that I fell to my knees without thinking. A being of light and fire, with wings like molten gold and a voice that echoed through my very soul. An angel. He raised his hand, and his voice thundered across eternity. The time is near. Judgment is coming. Many will be lost. The weight of his words crushed me. Many will be lost. I looked at Jesus, my heart breaking. Most of them don't even see it, do they? He met my eyes, and I saw pain in them. Sorrow. No, he said softly. Most are too distracted, too caught up in their own lives to notice what is coming. I thought of my own life. How many times had I ignored the truth? How many times had I pushed away the feeling that something was missing? How many people had I mocked or dismissed for their faith, thinking that it was all just a fairy tale? I had been blind, just like them. And now, I saw, they still have a chance, don't they? I whispered. Jesus nodded. As long as there is life, there is hope. Hope. But time was running out. The vision began to fade, the world around me pulling away like mist in the wind. You must tell them, Jesus said. His voice was both a command and a plea. Tell them before it's too late. And then, I woke up. A violent force yanked me backward. The radiant vision of Jesus, the angel, the book of life. It all rushed away as if I were being ripped out of a dream. The burning sky, the blind masses, the cries of those turned away. It blurred, then vanished completely. I felt myself falling. Faster, faster. Then, gasp. My chest heaved, sucking in air as if I had been drowning. My entire body jerked, and suddenly, pain. A sharp, crushing pain in my ribs, in my lungs, in my head. I was alive. Voices rang out in confusion. Machines beeped frantically. My vision was blurry, the world around me a chaotic mess of movement and sound. "She's back," a voice shouted. I tried to focus. I was lying in a hospital bed, tubes attached to my arms, my body trembling from shock. Tears streaked down my mother's face as she clutched my hand, whispering, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" My father stood beside her, looking pale, shaken, as if he had seen a ghost. Doctors hovered over me, their faces a mixture of relief and disbelief. One of them kept glancing at the monitor, shaking his head. She was gone. 3 full minutes. 3 minutes. That was all. But to me, it had felt like an eternity. I wasn't the same person who had stepped onto that crosswalk. Something inside me had changed forever. I wanted to speak, to tell them everything. But how could I? How do you explain hell, heaven, and judgment in a world that refuses to believe? How do you describe the darkness that moves, that breathes? How do you explain the weight of Jesus' gaze, the feeling of knowing that your entire life has been laid bare before him? I opened my mouth, but the words felt impossible. I saw. I tried, but my voice cracked. I couldn't force it out. Over the next few days, I tried again. At first, my parents just assumed I was confused, disoriented from the trauma. The doctors explained my visions away. Oxygen deprivation, hallucinations caused by a dying brain. But I knew the truth. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a hallucination. I had been there, and I had come back with a warning. That was when the strange things started happening. At night, I would wake up paralyzed. My mind was alert, but my body wouldn't move. I felt something in the room, something watching me. Shadows shifted in the corners. Whispers slithered through the air. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But then, one night, I felt a weight press down on my chest. Something unseen, something heavy, something trying to silence me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. Panic gripped me as the darkness wrapped around me like a living thing. And then, from somewhere deep within me, I forced out a single word. Jesus. Instantly, the presence vanished. The pressure lifted. The air cleared. The darkness fled. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't just about my experience. Something did not want me to speak. Something wanted to keep me silent. But I wouldn't be silent. I started telling people what had happened. Some listened. Some didn't. Some laughed, calling it a near-death delusion. Others dismissed me outright. You were dreaming. You were unconscious. It was just your brain. But a few truly listened. They came to me in secret, asking questions, their voices hushed with fear. What did you see? What do I need to do? I could see it in their eyes. They felt it. Even if they didn't want to admit it, even if they tried to hide behind logic and skepticism, something inside them knew I was telling the truth. I realized then, this was my mission. Not to convince everyone, not to argue, not to debate, but to warn, to speak, to tell the truth, no matter what it cost me, because I had seen what was coming. And most people won't get a second chance. If you're reading this right now, don't ignore it. This isn't just another story. This isn't just some internet testimony to scroll past and forget. I was given a glimpse of eternity. I was shown what is coming. The world is distracted by social media, by money, by success, by the temporary pleasures of this life. But time is running out. And when the door closes, it will be too late. Jesus wasn't just some historical figure. He is real. And so is hell. So is judgment. People always assume they have more time. They think, I'll get right with God later. I'll think about eternity when I'm older. But I'm telling you, later is not promised. When I stood before him, there were no excuses. No second chances. The only thing that mattered was whether I had truly known him. I was given a second chance, but most people won't be. So I ask you, will you ignore this warning, just like I once did? Or will you wake up before it's too late?